welcome back to my show. Today we have a really special guest with us here today. Her name is Meriano. Hi Meriano, how are you today? Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Meriano. I'm the author of the Love, Sugar, Magic series. That series, the book we'll be talking about today is A Dash of Trouble, which is book 1 in the series. The story follows a family who runs a bakery in a small town in Texas. And the main character, Leo, is 12 years old. She's the youngest sister in this family. And she discovers that her family has been keeping a pretty big secret from her, which is that they do not just run a bakery, they actually run a magical bakery. And her mom, her aunt, and all her sisters are brujas, and they are like sort of witches who make magical cookies and cakes and sweetbread. So Leo doesn't want to wait for her family to tell her the secret themselves. She sneaks around, steals the magic recipe book from her family, and starts doing spells on her own, which gets her into lots of trouble. The rest of the series sort of follows her continued adventures with magic. And I also have another book that's for teenagers and it's more realistic. It's called This Is How We Fly, and it's about teenager characters who play Quidditch in real life. So that's me. I'm an author. I live in Texas, and I love to be involved in books.
So guys, if you want to check out her book, I'll share the link to her book and her website in the link below. And yeah, so Anna, what is like your writing process or writing routine?
My writing process?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little different for each book, but I guess I start with some amount of brainstorming or some amount of thinking about the story. For Love, Sugar, Magic, I did it a little differently. I worked with a couple of my friends who are part of Cake Literary, which is like a book organization. So we worked together to come up with the idea for the Love, Sugar, Magic series. So that was really fun. It was sort of a fun collaborative project where we were working together. And then I sit down and I write. I usually write by hand, which I know is a little unusual. Especially these days, a lot of people use their computers for their first drafts. But I still like to write my first draft on paper with a pencil or a pen sometimes. And then I type it all up. And so that's sort of my second round of revising is where I look at what I wrote and I type it up and I decide if I like it or if I want to change it. That's part of my process. Then, of course, any book that you ever find in the bookstore will have gone through many, many, many rounds of edits. My Love, Sugar, Magic book 1, I want to say it went through about 10 rounds of edits, maybe 8 full rounds, and then a couple other short passes. So, if however long the book is and however long it takes you to read, imagine me doing that 8 times. And that's why it took many years for the book to come out. And every time I'm reading it, I'm also changing things and I'm adding things and I'm trying to make the book the best it can be. So yeah, that's sort of the process of how the book gets from just, hey, it would be cool to write this book, to a book that you can really see on your shelf. There's also a lot of involvement from my publishing company, Walden Pond Press. There are people like my editor who read through the book with me and help me decide how to make the book better. There are people who work on designing the beautiful cover. There's an artist, Miguel Ortega, who drew the beautiful covers for all 3 of my books. There are people who decide on the font and how big the words will be. There are people who decide what color the board part of the book will be when it's a hardcover, not when it's a paperback. So there's all these people making all these really cool decisions to help make it be a physical book that you can actually buy and touch and flip the pages of. It's really cool.
That's really cool. So, what's your favorite writing snack or drink?
Oh, I mean, this series especially, I went to a lot of bakeries around me in Texas, especially Mexican bakeries, panaderias, because that's the type of bakery that Leo's family runs, since they're a Mexican-American family. So I really like to eat the cookies that Leo makes in this book a couple times, actually, or at least a couple times in the series, maybe just once in the book, that are the little pig cookies. And Leo makes some that have wings, but the normal ones that you find at any bakery, they just are shaped like pigs. They're a little bit puffy. They taste almost like gingerbread, although they don't have ginger in them. And they're just sort of soft and sweet and really, really good. So that's one of my favorite snacks, and I would get them a lot when I was writing this series. Other things, I really like tea, so I drink a lot of tea while I write.
So you must have felt like you were in the book itself because you were actually experiencing the food and things your main character would eat and drink.
Yeah, sometimes for sure.
Like,
and I would also get to look, when I went into the bakeries, I would look around for ideas about what Leo's bakery might look like, things that it might have.
Like in your first book, when I read it, it had so many bonus recipes in it.
Mm-hmm.
So were those recipes your own handmade recipes, or were they like brought into the book by some other person?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I have to admit, I don't actually know how to bake. I love to eat baked goods. I love to visit bakeries, but I am not a baker myself. I don't really know how. So it was very cool that we were able to get those recipes. I mentioned before my friends at Cake Literary. One of them, Danielle Clayton, who also writes books of her own, she was the baker in that group, and so she was able to help me with making those recipes. Coming up, she researched a bunch of other recipes and sort of made versions of her own for us to put in the books, which was really cool. But yeah, I didn't make them up because I'm not a very kitchen person.
That's really fun. So how did you manage to format it and put it into the book like that?
That's a good question. I think that was mostly, like I was saying, the publishing house workers who do all of the formatting and putting it in. And then I know Mirel Ortega, who is the person who drew the cover illustrator is the word I was looking for. She also drew little illustrations to go with the recipes and to go with the beginnings of each chapter. They're very
I've noticed that. They look beautiful.
Yeah. So they're like little small illustrations. But she is credited as the illustrator on this series because we had those, pictures of the pig cookies, the porquitos or the marranitos, or she got pictures of different treats that you'll see in the bakery. And then she did, especially for the recipes, she drew an illustration of each thing that you can bake.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So many people talk about NaNoWriMo. Personally, even I have done it because I may have not told this, but I'm a writer myself and I have
Oh, that doesn't surprise me, but that's very cool.
I have one book published and I got it published when I was 11 years old.
Amazing.
So it's called Mixed Polo Stories, and that one was not done during NaNoWriMo, but I have participated in NaNoWriMo many times. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of NaNoWriMo? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think you feel rushed? What do you feel? And what do you think about it?
I think NaNoWriMo is just an awesome idea. It's an awesome time of the year. I always look forward to when that month comes around, but I've never completed it either. And I think it's mostly because I just haven't had good timing. I've always been, as a younger person, like in high school and college, I wasn't a fast enough writer. I just had a lot of other things going on, and I was practicing writing pretty consistently, but I was never going very fast. So I think that actually if I had done more nano in high school and college, I would have been a much better writer because I would have actually known what it was like to finish something or to work hard on a deadline. But I just didn't. So by the time I was a more professional writer, I was, looking to publish my books. My timelines just never lined up with NaNoWriMo. So I use NaNoWriMo. I use that energy when I know other people are doing NaNoWriMo. I use it to encourage me to write more. Oftentimes I've been on deadline for editing when NaNoWriMo rolls around. So I will maybe not write a whole new novel, but I will use that month to edit my novel, or I will use that month to finish something that I was already working on. But I really do love the idea of it. I think that some of my favorite books, especially ones that are coming out this year, started off as NaNoWriMo projects. The only one I can think of is not a middle grade book. It's a young adult book. So, if you want to check it out, if any of your listeners are YA readers, it's 1500 Miles from the Sun by Johnny Garcia. I'm blanking on any middle grade books that I know were NaNoWriMo projects, but a lot of my friends do write whole books for NaNoWriMo. So I think it's really cool. Someday I hope to do it. The only year I ever thought I would maybe really start a project for NaNoWriMo was 2016. And that November was just a really hard year. So I ended up stopping. And every other November has just been not the right timing. But yeah, so, that's really cool. I love it.
Yeah, so I think NaNoWriMo happens twice a year. It happens in November as well as July.
Oh, right. Camp Nano, right?
Camp Nano is in April.
Oh,
so
I actually didn't know about the July one then. Okay, yeah.
November, April, and July. So in July, I guess it's the summer one. November is I don't know what happens in November, but I've participated in the April one and the July one.
Oh, cool. Actually, July would probably be better. Maybe I'll have to participate this year in the July one.
Yeah, it starts on July 1st, I think. Yeah.
Cool.
So, as an author, many authors love to Google themselves. So, have you ever Googled yourself? And if you have, when was the last time and what did you find?
Oh, well, I feel love to Google themselves might be a hard word, or might be a hard way to put it because I think it's a little bit scary to do. But anyway, I used to be much better. I used to not Google myself at all, but my mom would Google me and then she would tell me what she found. That was when my first book came out. More recently, when my newest book came out, it was in December of 2020. And it was in the middle of the pandemic, and it just felt very weird because every other time I'd published a book, I put it, it was the special day that the book came out, and I was able to have a party. I was able to go to a bookstore. For my second and third Love, Sugar, Magic books, there would be kids who had read the first book showing up to hear me talk about the second book or to hear me talking about the third book. Maybe I would go to schools and I would visit the school and talk to the kids at the school. So it felt more like I already knew that people were out there and that they were reading my book, and I felt good about that. So I didn't feel like I needed to Google myself very much. But with this new book, it was the pandemic and I couldn't go as many places. I couldn't visit bookstores. I couldn't go to schools because no schools were open yet. So I did kind of find myself Googling just to see if anyone had read this book that came out. And I didn't love it because it didn't make me feel good usually. Even if someone had something nice to say about my book, I would just end up feeling like, oh, I don't know if they liked it enough, or, well, there's not enough people who are talking about it. So it just kind of ended up making me feel bad. So now I try to do that less. I don't have very much fun when I Google myself, so I try not to.
Oh, okay.
But I do think that it's a cool, I think it's very fun that, for example, if you Google me, you can find things like events that I've done or my website. So I get really excited when, for example, people like you reach out and say, oh, I found, your website. Can we do a podcast? Or occasionally I will have people write either emails or letters to my post office box to say, I enjoyed reading your book. So that's really special. I love when people are able to Google me and reach out to me and contact me to let me know that they've read my books. So, you know, there's good and bad things about being on Google.
Yeah. So this is like the most important question I wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm.
If your book became into a movie, which actors or actresses would play your characters?
Oh man. So I feel like I had an answer to this question, but now a lot of the people that I used to think about have gotten older and maybe wouldn't be such a good age to play the characters. Oh, and also I'm forgetting the name of the youngest one. Well, anyway, I could definitely imagine, you know, some of my favorite Latina actresses jumping in, like, you know, if Selena Gomez wanted to play one of the very older siblings or the aunt, or if America Ferrera was going to be involved and she could be the mom, like that would be really, really cool. But I don't know a whole lot of younger actors who are Mexican American. Actually, I don't even know if America Ferrera is. I thought she was, but I'm not 100%. I know she has played Mexican American characters and also Guatemalan characters. Anyways, I don't know a lot of young Mexican American actresses that could, for example, play Leo. I know. So I'm not really sure. I think it would be fun to see. And I also, just like I love how, you know, I can write a book and then the publishing company, the sales team could come together and make it look so pretty and look awesome. I feel like if my book was going to become a movie, I would just be so excited that there would be a really talented casting director who would say, oh, no, you don't know. There's these much better actors, or not better, but, you know, there's these people that you haven't even thought of that you don't know about, but I know about them and I'm going to get them on board. So I feel like I don't know exactly who I would want to play everyone, but I would just be so excited to like have auditions and have people come out and see who's out there who would want to be in the movie.
That sounds really cool. So are you planning, is like your book anywhere close to becoming a movie? Because I would definitely watch it if it was.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I always constantly have my fingers crossed that it will someday become a movie. I think it would be a super awesome movie or, you know, TV series. And we've had some we've had some close encounters where, for example, a movie company will say, hey, we wanted to know more about this book. Then so far it hasn't ever gotten to the point where they've bought it and, you know, signed a contract and started making it. So right now there are no concrete plans. I'm still always hopeful that something will change and that there will be a movie or a TV series that we can announce.
Okay, so that's really cool. So with this we have come to the end, but before that I would love to have you do a small talk on your book, like read a few pages and then leave it on a cliffhanger. So, you know.
Yeah, I would love to. And you were saying probably I should read from the second book, right? For the people who maybe enjoyed this interview or who have already read the first book. So I think I will do that. Let me see what would be a good section. So I think I'll just... I think I'll just read the first couple of pages of book 2, which will give you a little bit of the idea of the setting and also the time of year that this book takes place. So this is chapter 1 of Love, Sugar, Magic, book number 2, A Sprinkle of Spirit. Leonora Elena Logroño, where did you disappear to? Leo jumped at the voice, glancing over her shoulder at the swinging blue doors that separated the kitchen from the front of the bakery where she was, and her family's prying eyes from Leo's experiment. Mama was back. Ita, we have luggage to unload, and I want a welcome home hug. She's out here, Mama. Leo's 16-year-old sister, Marisol, peeked her head over the doors and smiled treacherously as she added, avoiding work. I am not, Leo yelped, hopping off the bakery counter she wasn't supposed to sit on. I was running the register like the schedule says. The bakery wouldn't open for another 20 minutes, but she wasn't quite as quick as her friend Caroline when it came to inventing excuses. Luckily, no one seemed to be listening to her. Mama's head joined Marisol to peer into the front of the bakery. The large purple duffel bag over one shoulder and the smaller backpack on the other smacked the doors and sent them swinging open and shut. Well, she asked, what about that hug? Leo smiled and rushed into the kitchen. Welcome home, she said into her mother's shirt. How was the convention? Mama dumped her bags next to the long wooden table in the center of the kitchen, pushed strands of dark hair out of her face, and smiled. She had dressed for the early morning road trip in jean shorts and a black t-shirt. It was nice, Hita. Mama and Isabel had spent the weekend at the Southwest Regional Brujeria and Spellcraft Convention, the one time a year that brujos and brujas, witches and sorcerers from around Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana met up to swap stories and stock up on crow feathers and spider eggs and other components for spells. The SRBSC had a monthly newsletter too, but it almost always ended up unread in a pile on the Logroño family kitchen table. Everything went perfectly while you were away, Leo said, puffing her chest out a little. Since school was still out for the rest of the week, she had been allowed to help at the bakery almost full time. We didn't even need you or Isabel to get ready for Dia de los Reyes. Amor y Azúcar Panaderia smelled sweet and yeasty. 2 counters lined with trays of thick dough rings and the long wooden table scattered with dried fruit and bowls of sugar icing. Today was January 3rd, and that meant the next 3 days would be all about baking and selling Rosca de Reyes, King's Cake, to help the town of Rose Hill, Texas, celebrate Dia de los Reyes. I think I'll stop there. Sorry, it wasn't much of a cliffhanger.
That was amazing. Okay, so with this, we have come to the end of the show. I hope you all had fun, and I hope to see you all guys next time. Bye, guys.